Hey, what's up guys? Thank you for tuning in to Loam, where today we're going to be checking out the brand new Cannondale Moterra SL, a lightweight, full power e-bike with a Shimano EP801 drive unit, a 600 watt-hour battery, and a 62.5 degree head tube angle. Find out all the details on it and learn how it's been riding in this first ride report on Loam. Let's go. Yes, beside me is Cannondale's brand new Moterra SL, their first SL e-mountain bike, and really the bike that represents Cannondale's version of what an SL mountain bike should be. Certainly a lighter weight version of their standard Moterra LT e-bike, but one that is still packing the full power of a full power e-bike motor, and still a reasonable battery capacity too, to power you for nice and long rides. The focus with the Moterra SL was to keep things nice and lightweight overall, just by optimizing pretty much every single element of the bike to deliver the best, kind of lightest overall handling package without losing any stiffness or strength or just all-around shreddability really. They've really put the effort in to minimize that frame weight without coming with other drawbacks that might otherwise be found with systems that use either lower torque outputs or smaller battery capacities or just flimsier frames in general. This Moterra SL is definitely a bike that has been made to take a bit of a beating and to rally pretty hard on the descents. Starting off with the drive unit, Cannondale's opted to use the Shimano EP801 drive unit, a full power motor putting out 85 Newton meters of torque and 600 watts of peak power. And they powered this with their own custom designed battery, which has a 600 watt hour capacity. So slightly less than your typical full power e-mountain bike, but certainly not ridiculously low level like some of the 320 to 400 watt hour batteries you typically find in the SL e-bike category. And then they've really worked to deliver some extra kind of ways that you're going to be saving battery usage, minimizing battery consumption and maximizing efficiency, just to ensure that that 600 watt hour battery still lets you play with full power e-bikes for a long time. One of the things that Cannondale was really focusing on trying to achieve with the Moterra SL was a minimal frame weight overall without sacrificing in frame rigidity. And one of the things that they've done to achieve this is to take the flex pivot design that's typically found in their shorter travel bikes like the Scalpel, and then they've taken this onto the longer travel platform. So this 150mm rear travel, 160mm bike also uses that flex pivot in the rear end in place of a couple of bearings on either sides, which shaves weight and also allows them to simplify the frame overall. There's less parts to maintain down there, and achieve a little bit more lateral stiffness without having to add a ton of weight and material to achieve that. What this minimal frame weight has allowed Cannondale to deliver is complete bike weights ranging from just over 19 kilos up to just over 20 kilos. So certainly in the full power crowd, this is impressive weight, and that is actually translated quite nicely out on the trail into the ride character, which we'll get onto a little bit later on. As standard, Cannondale's opted to deliver the Moterra SL as a mullet setup, the mixed wheel with a 27.5 inch rear wheel and a 29er up front. But there is a flip chip on there, so you can add a 29-inch rear wheel if that's to your liking, but they don't offer any complete builds with the 29-inch wheel setup on both ends standard. And then Cannondale also features their proportional response design, so each frame is given kind of custom geometry from the seat tube angle to the chainstay length to, as you kind of go up the size range, they're just trying to keep the rider's center of gravity in around about the same place or optimize it for each size, meaning that regardless of what size you are, you should be getting the same kind of performance and overall quality of ride feel on the Moterra SL. And they've also given it proportional response kinematics as well, so the suspension is tuned for different rider weights of that you typically find in each size, just giving you that best performance that they can deliver. taking a look at the geometry that Cannondale opted to go for in the Moterra SL, the majority of the numbers are fairly kind of reasonably selected, fairly typical for this style of bike, kind of all mountain to light enduro or full-on enduro e-mountain bike. But there is one outlying figure which we'll lead off with, which is the 62.5-degree head tube angle as standard. There are headset cups that let you steepen that around about a degree. But yeah, as standard, 62.5 degrees is pretty much as slack as it gets when it comes to mountain bikes in general. There's not certainly many more bikes on the market that have a slacker head angle than that. But it's proven to work pretty damn good out on the trails, so certainly not a kind of figure that should necessarily put you off of the bike. But definitely one that's pretty interesting to see, pretty out there for Cannondale to select, and yeah, pretty damn rad in general, really. It's a bike that's clearly focused to attack the trail and really go fast on the descents. Rest of the geometry, you've got 77-degree effective seat tube angle across the size range. The chainstays go from 449mm on the size small up to 458mm on the extra large, with fairly even increments between them. Reach on this size large is 470mm, and then you've got a 640mm stack, which is fairly high. And yeah, generally the geometry is fairly well rounded, fairly nice to see. Just that yeah, head tube angle is certainly an outlier, but not one that's proved to cause any issues out on the trails. In terms of build specs, Cannondale's bringing 3 options to market for the Moterra SL initially. These are the Moterra SL2, SL1, and then the SL Lab 71, which is their kind of special high-end super custom build, which comes with a crazy paint job. It looks super cool in the flesh. We tested the SL1, which is the, I guess, mid-range, but certainly a bike that is equipped with some very high quality parts overall. In terms of pricing, I don't have that information to hand just now, and it does vary quite significantly in terms of both the spec and the pricing from different markets, but be it the UK, Europe, or North America. So head to our website in the description below, where you'll be able to check out all the details there when we get them. But yeah, for now, I think it's safe to assume that it's not going to be a super cheap bike. This is certainly targeted to be a high quality, high performance bike overall. But yeah, absolutely one that so far has given me no problems at all with the spec, and really has a super dialed build. You can't go wrong with Fox Factory suspension on it. It's got a set of Magura brakes, the MT7s, which have been performing really nicely. A solid DT Swiss aluminium wheel set, and SRAM Exo Eagle transmission T-type. So certainly all very sensibly selected and high quality components all around. Now that you've learned all there is to know about the Cannondale Moterra SL, let's talk about how it's been riding on the trails here in Braga in Portugal. When Cannondale first invited us to this press camp, they told us there was a new e-bike and then a new other bike coming, and really didn't give us many details, really left it to us to guess what it was going to be. And of course, with that little gap in Cannondale's lineup, I always had the inclination that it was going to be an SL e-bike. But I think what's safe to say is at the moment, SL e-bikes are not defined into one super kind of coherent category. There is certainly a range of bikes from, you know, fairly low power and small battery capacity bikes, all the way up to things like the Moterra SL, which turns out to have a full power motor, 85 Nm output motor, the EP801, with a pretty damn big 600 watt-hour battery as well. Whether you would still consider that SL is, I guess, up to anyone to decide. It's not, yeah, certainly a category that, like I say, has any sort of really well-defined criteria to fit into it. This is certainly lighter than Cannondale's Moterra Neo LT, so it's SL in that respect, and certainly in terms of the amount of fun that you can have on it, there's definitely no denying that it is a lighter, more poppy and playful bike than your typical full-fat, full-power motor bike would be. We've been testing it just for one day so far here in Braga in Portugal, or trails very nearby, and certainly we got enough kind of distance and really kind of, yeah, enough descending time and climbing time on the bike to really figure out how it's performing so far. But of course, this is not a long-term review, so do stay tuned for that. We're also hoping to have this in our e-bike shootout coming up slightly later on in the year, so be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss that when it hits the YouTube channel. But yeah, for now, takeaways from the performance. Number one was when I learned that it had a 62.5-degree head angle, my initial sort of, I guess, assumptions were that this thing was going to be kind of a slouch to turn, really. 62.5 degrees is very slack, and typically a slacker head angle leads to kind of lazier, sort of more stable steering response, which, yeah, generally just makes the overall ride of a bike a little bit more dull. But in terms of this bike, because its overall weight is slightly lower, because they've opted to give it fairly conservative geometry in other places, the reach numbers are not super long for the sticker size of the bike. Yeah, just in general, this is a bike that is not struggling for agility. You can still absolutely dart around on the trail side to side. It does just take a little bit of an adjustment period to get used to its handling. I did find initially, certainly with the initial suspension setup I had on it, that the balance was not quite there, and I was finding a little bit of a problem getting enough weight on the front wheel to keep it kind of gripping really nicely. But with a little tweak here and there, and maybe a bit of adjustment to my riding style and my body positioning on the bike when I was trying a corner, it didn't turn out to be an issue. And apart from one small crash that I had when the front washed out, it actually just led itself to being a serious amount of fun. And yeah, certainly rewarding cornering that is much more on the sort of dip the bike in and really tip it into a turn, rather than using a lot more bar input to actually turn the wheel. But yeah, that's just kind of what you would come to expect from a slacker head tube angle. Otherwise, Shimano EP801 motor definitely needs no introduction unless you are new to the e-bike world. But it's safe to say it is a solid performing motor. It delivers its power nicely. There is plenty of power there to be delivered. It's not the torquiest motor on the market, but it certainly does a pretty damn good job. And when you consider the slightly lighter overall bike weight as well, you don't necessarily need quite as much torque to get it up to speed and to get yourself up a steep bit of climb, because the overall weight is that little bit lower. And yeah, in terms of a 600 watt-hour battery capacity, that is, it proved to get us plenty of distance, plenty of elevation on our ride, and it definitely didn't lead to the same sort of range anxiety that you might suffer from a typical SL e-bike. We were certainly using the eco mode very little on that ride. Mainly they offer two different trail mode setups, a sort of trail light and a trail sort of slightly more powerful setting, and we found we were spending most of the time in there and got a very solid day's riding in with that battery capacity. Climber performance was absolutely solid. The rear end length growing size by size does help just keep enough weight on that front wheel for slightly taller riders, and yeah, certainly it didn't prove to kind of cause any issues on any of the steep bits of climb. Yeah, even with that 62.5-degree head tube angle, there's still plenty of weight on that front wheel to make it, you know, pretty stress-free to climb and wiggle your way up some pretty technical stuff. The rear end had plenty of grip. They've opted to go for quite a low anti-squat figure on this, instead relying on the natural kind of efficiency that a e-bike motor can give you and sort of smooth out that pedal stroke, rather than you having to actively input quite so much of your body weight to get that power. And yeah, there's certainly been very little to complain about with the climbing performance of the Moterra SL. It's absolutely a solid climbing bike. But for me anyway, and I guess for the majority of people looking to buy a kind of aggressive 62.5-degree head tube angle e-mountain bike, it's going to be the descending performance that you're most interested in, and that is when it actually came into its own. It was a super fun, really kind of a bike that rewarded you pushing it hard, just absolutely charging through the terrain here in Portugal. I was trying to follow riders like Josh Bryceland, where they certainly were not holding back. The guides here as well were absolutely crazy. The We Ride Portugal guides, absolutely not holding back whatsoever. And this bike had my back. Like I say, I had one small washout in a corner, and other than that, I felt pretty damn in control and happy charging hard, and it was a serious amount of fun. 150, 160 mil travel bikes are getting damn good these days. They offer you all of the kind of capability of an enduro bike from just a year or two ago. They're yeah, definitely well sorted, and the kinematic on the Moterra SL feels to be pretty damn dialed. There was not really anything to complain about. The overall balance of the bike felt pretty good. The rear end isn't the shortest, but I think for an e-bike anyway, because the weight is pretty damn low on this thing, you're still able to pop and play, get that front wheel up without too much of an issue, too much of an effort. And yeah, it really has been a serious amount of fun. The overall frame stiffness is maybe on the fairly high side, which is kind of unusual these days, I think, for the full power e-bikes. A lot of them are on the slightly softer side, and what that lets you do is just push super hard without kind of having any vague sensations or anything that makes you feel a little bit nervous in the performance and the capability of the bike. And we've been riding this thing damn hard for its first day, for its first ride. But for now, I think there's certainly very little to complain about with the Moterra SL. It's a bike that Cannondale's done an absolutely stellar job in designing, and a bike that I've really enjoyed taking it for its first ride. I hope you guys have enjoyed checking out this video and joining me along for the ride. Give us a like if you have, leave us a comment, let us know what you think about the Moterra SL. Is this the real future of SL eMTBs? If it is, then I'm not mad about it, because it's absolutely been a serious amount of fun to ride, and almost does give you the maybe not quite the best of both worlds. It's definitely a full power e-bike, there's no mistake in that, but it is a very light and agile one. And be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on more content on awesome bikes like the Moterra SL and our e-bike shootout coming up in the next couple of months, where this thing will be going head to head with 12 or 13 other e-mountain bikes. Thanks for watching, guys. Catch you out on the trails.